Before we dive in, quick heads up. For a limited time in January, we're offering 25% off an annual Chase Club membership. Plus, anyone who signs up or is already a member gets automatically entered to win some awesome prize packs. We're talking about CompTrend subscriptions, discounts to future enlifted certifications, and more. Just head to chasingexcellence.email to jump in. All right, let's get into the episode.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. We have hijacked it from Patrick for the day, so you won't get to hear his smooth and sultry voice. He doesn't even know that we're doing this, but I'm just kidding. We are jumping into the first of what hopefully will be many training-specific conversations here on the Chasing Excellence platform. So a bit of a CompTrain Chasing Excellence official collaboration here. So with Ben and Cole, and we're just going to jump straight into it. What we're going to talk about today is some information we shared actually on social media a while back that got a lot of engagement and a lot of questions. And the topic is 7 things that are hard to do, but are also critical. So we're just going to jump straight into it. And you guys, we will be keeping points as to whose answers are better and announce the winner at the end of this.
Is there a handicap? I feel like I need a handicap.
Ben's
Or
had
a
lot
head
more time
start,
before.
or like the normal,
He has
like
had a lot
if
more
I'm
time
working out
before.
with Cole, like
Yeah.
I get to do the female weights, or there's something. I don't know.
The age. Yeah. You get to answer the age group questions.
When Pat Sherwood used to work out with Chris Spieler, he was like, if you don't half my time, I beat you, you know. Like
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was the
Yeah,
reference
totally.
point.
Yeah. That's good. Well, no, it's like who's like, anyways, the rules are made up and the points don't matter. So
I like that.
let's roll. So 7 things that are hard, but also critical. You guys can fight over who answers which ones. We are going to go straight into question number 1. The first thing that is hard, but is critical is warming up properly. It feels boring, but it improves everything about the training experience. One of you go speak to why that is hard, but critical.
You're going to get better results.
If I was to ask Heather this, she would say, no, what is more critical is showing up 8 minutes late to class and jumping in. So
Yeah, well, if we're talking about Heather, the options are either she shows up 8 minutes to class and jumps in, or she doesn't do it at all. So,
Right.
yeah.
So we're always going to take no burpee penalties for being late. We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, warming up. So let's just talk this is hard but critical. And I think that no one's going to I don't know about that one, right? I don't think this is a jarring one or a new one. Maybe it's a little bit of maybe the why. So why is it critical? Why is it important? And I also don't think this is news to anybody as well, right? So you're prepping your body physically and psychologically for what's about to happen. And if you do those 2 things, as Cole said, you get better results. What does that mean to prep physically and psychologically? Physically, it's about literally warming up the internal body. Like your body literally gets warmer. Your joints start to kind of lubricate with synovial fluid. You start to work yourselves through as you get close to 50 years old, like I am. I don't own below parallel. I don't own overhead mobility. I have to warm up to those things. The next is you start to get the heart rate going. It's like blood pumping so that you can literally kind of work yourself through so you're not shocking your body. As you go into a higher intensity training session, you're kind of priming a car that's been sitting outside in the Northeast in the winter. You don't just take it and then floor it. You don't just take a rubber band out of the freezer and stretch it. You literally kind of grease the groove warm into this thing. So the punchline is better workouts, better training, better results. And that's what we're all kind of after, is the reason we're training in the first place is to get better results. Also with that is you hedge against injury as you kind of allow yourself to kind of do this appropriately. I will say we're on the East Coast where we are, football games come on very late. We are in the midst of the playoffs right now. And last night was Monday Night Football. And we were watching the teams warm up. We went to bed at kickoff, but we were watching the teams warm up. And Heather was like, what is that? And it was the athletes going through their line drills warming up. And she's like, what is that? And it was Aaron Rodgers going through his warm and completely going through the motions, like not actually warming up at all. And I was like, hey, this is like, some people are just really talented, right? They're not intentional. They're not focused on the tiny half percents. They are there kind of going through the motions and just letting their talent speak for itself. So while critical also becomes a relative term. It is critical for me to warm up as an athlete that doesn't have a lot of talent and as an athlete that is almost 50 years old. I can't just jump into something. There are other athletes that can just jump into things. And they're the ones that are going to go, it's not that critical. It doesn't matter that much. You're probably right for you, right? You're 19 years old. You can jump through the roof. Like, yeah, maybe. Yeah. So it is like, will it improve your performance? I have a very, very high confidence it will.
I've worked with a physical therapist at one point throughout my career that said the longer your warm up takes, the less healthy your body is. Essentially pointing to the fact that if it's taking you a long period of time to warm up, there's probably an underlying issue that you should be working on. There's a level of mobility that you need to gain and range of motion that you don't have, that you have, like Ben is saying, that he has to warm up into those things. And I would make the argument that yes, those people might just be in a healthy enough state, a recovered enough state that they can get into things quicker than some other people. That's fine. I can accept that. However, I can't accept that if you don't warm up, your body cannot perform to the level that it otherwise would if you did the appropriate warm up for your body. And that's what Ben's alluding to, is there is an appropriate level for each person. Do that. At least do that, because then the time that you're spending you're going to reap more benefits from the time that you're spending and get more out of your training session, which is the point. Don't go in there and just go through the motions. Why are you even in there then? Go get your best bang for your buck. Make it be intentional, be deliberate about what you're doing. So yeah, I would definitely lean into that onto that side.
I think a rule of thumb. I like that Cole's, the more you need to warm up, maybe the more underlying issues or whatever it might be. A rule of thumb that we've kind of played with, and it's a toy, not a tool, right? It's definitely not a rule, is 10 minutes per decade should be your warm up. If you're 17 years old, like you're in your, whatever, you're in your 10 minutes. But me in my 40s, the majority of my training session in the gym actually should be a warm up.
I love what you're saying there too, because I was going to get into this. And I think that there's actually some really valuable work that people can be doing inside of their warm up.
Yeah, that's what's missed a lot.
And so this is actually it's massively what I've shifted to on the other side of my professional career as an athlete, is now it's how can I blend my warm up with some of the mobility work that I need to do to get both of those in one instance. And on the other side of it, I'm warm, I am now more mobile, I've gained a better range of motion, and I've kept the things I have. So definitely getting the best bang for your buck, I think it's there. Like, utilize it that way.
Yeah, I think maybe to like synthesize that into application, it's fair to say that not warming up properly leaves performance and therefore results on the table. I think, to summarize what you're both saying. So maybe as a quick takeaway would be, I love the idea of your warm up contributing to like the totality of your training volume, understanding that like warming up is warming up versus training because of the level of intensity you're doing it with. But we've talked ad nauseum about like zone 2 training and people's obsession with it. And the fact that like the real benefit of zone 2 training is just the fact that you can do more training because of its low intensity. So how would you tie that to the concept of, this is going to transition well into our next question, but how would you tie that effectively to the concept of kind of warming up as something that contributes to the totality of your training volume? And how do you approach warm-ups? And maybe what are a couple of your all's very specific warm-ups that you would focus on in order for it not to just be this going through the motions and not only increasing body temperature, but like actually benefiting your training?
Yeah, great. The first part is like if you're intentional, right? That is, you bring the intentionality, then you kind of like go, what are the component parts of a complete warm-up? And what most people do, I think, are either just trying to do one thing. They're trying to like when I used to read the muscle magazines, it was like, before you lift, jump on a bike for 5 minutes and then go lift. It was like, okay. But even when you would go do the bro sessions, you jump on the bench press, you don't just start off by like loading up the bar with 225 and repping it out. Even the bros understand this to a little degree, right? Right? They do a couple arm circles in either direction. Yeah, that little like flex back and forth. Maybe they grab the rig and they stretch out their pec a little bit, right? And then they put on, no one puts on less than 45 pounds. So they put on 135.
Yeah, one bill.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're getting at is a little bit of like the different components. One is super general, right? One is about truly core body temperature and full ranges of motion. It gets, as you go down the path, it becomes closer to like activation. And this is where you see like, I'll call it on the other side, CJ Stroud warming up. He's doing 10 minutes of essentially crossover symmetry off the goalposts before super crazy intentional, right? And so he's doing activation at that point. So there is super general body temperature, full range of motion, activation to working through limitations. So for me, if I have like, this is where like specific mobility comes in, working through something to kind of open up an area that might be closed off to me, and then activating it after that, going all the way into then specific. And the specific is also really sort of overlooked, but that's actually doing the actual movement, but with lighter loads, not only for a multitude of reasons, to prime physically and psychologically, but also to truly drill in phenomenal movement patterns. So crazy intentional, right? So if you do some like goblet squats, or even like holding a plate before your back squat session, and as you do it, you're crazy intentional about your foot placement, and maybe even do it barefoot to get even more about it, right? And then you're all about you want basically, as the load is lighter, the focus should be higher. It's the opposite of what people think, right? When the load is light, the focus is crazy high. That's called practice. So what we get is some practice in. As the weight goes up, you actually shouldn't be thinking as much. You want your natural abilities and the movement patterns you built in. Kind of like Cole knows this, and more than anyone, when you go into like an elite level competition, I want your mind blank, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not training. It's certainly not practice. So this is the whole idea, is like you start off with general, you go to full range of motion, you go through some sticky points, you get some activation, then you go through the specific, which leads into practice, which then leads to the ramp up to the actual thing.
Mm-hmm. When I do, to paint the picture of that, to paint the picture of like how I go through this in an actual warm up, is I will, like Ben saying, I will get the body warm first. So that might be 3 minutes, and even it could be this. It just be 3 minutes on the Echo bike, and at the top of the minute, I'll do a sprint, and I'll just kind of not even a sprint, but like, and then I'll actually increase in my sprints on the minute. So like I'll get harder and harder as I go, and that is just kind of getting the muscles generally warm, and then go through some activation things, stretching the wall, some PNF stretching, where you're actually like you're pressing against the wall and then going deeper into the range of motion. But then the thing that I really like that Ben was pointing to is then I will go to the bench, and with 95 pounds, I will do really kind of slow, perfect reps, even at 95 pounds. And I'll do them perfectly. And I'll set that, and I'll do 3 reps at that, and I'll rack it. I'll wait a few minutes, just kind of like make sure that like I'm fresh. And then I will go and I'll do faster reps. I'll rack it. And this is still all at 95 pounds. And then I will do 3 reps as fast as I can, trying to keep that perfect form that I had just instilled. And then I start climbing to my working weight. And I'm just trying to set in my mind neurologically the movement pattern that I want to be having, as well as then activating the nervous system to lift fast and hard and activate muscle fibers.
Yeah, I think that's great. This is going to go straight into question number 2. So Cole, maybe just kind of like continue that narrative on the second one. So the first one is warm up properly, your performance will improve and therefore your results. And I guess my argument to wrap that up is you will also enjoy your session more because you'll be more primed for it psychologically and physically. So like you're just going to have a better time as well. So number 2, lifting less to lift better. Why is that hard, but a critical thing to understand? And how do you implement it?
Everybody thinks that you need to lift the heaviest weight possible to get as strong as possible, but there is this fascinating concept that if you try to lift a light load as fast as you possibly can, you activate as many muscle fibers as if you were to lift a heavy load slowly. And that is what I was referring to in the activation of the nervous system is getting the brain and the body connected of I want these muscle fibers to turn on when I engage them. And so you can lift less as long as you are moving that with as much intention and speed as you possibly can. And then the wonderful benefit of that is you don't run into the inroads recovery of recovery detriment where now your nervous system is becoming a little bit taxed or overworked or overloaded, and you can lift more often. You can have more training sessions day to day, week to week, because you're able to recover from those and you're able to come back and not be run down from lifting above 90% every single lifting session.
James, can you say it again? Was it lift less to lift better?
Lift less to lift better, meaning loading, not frequency.
Okay, yeah. If it's to lift better, 100%. Yeah, like this is, again, I think it was like in terms of the three different categories of what you could do when you are moving loads. You could be practicing, you could be training, you can be competing. You improve through practice and training. You don't improve through competition other than learning specific things about the competition. But there's an old saying, which is you can actually compete yourself out of shape because you don't get physiologically better. You understand the components of a competition. Coming from the triathlon world, if you do a sprint triathlon every weekend to try to prep yourself for your Olympic, you're probably going to train yourself. You're probably going to compete yourself out of shape. That's why they don't do that. Same thing here is if you're trying to lift more, meaning more weight, more load every single time to get better, that's not necessarily the path. There is a kind of, Cole's talking about kind of like the velocity and the speed of which you train and execute the reps, certainly shown to be beneficial. For strength, there's not a whole lot of difference between true strength training that happens at 80, 85, or 90% versus 95, 98, 97, and 100. Really, that 80 to 90% is the sweet spot. Cole kind of alluded to it. If you're training 90%, you're going to have to bring the frequency, the amount of reps, sets, and frequency is which that show up through the week drastically down. If you lift closer to the 80%, you can bring the reps, the sets, and the frequency up a little bit, potentially, depending on what you're doing with the other two, all intermixed. If we're trying to become better at the movements, which a lot of people are especially when they're learning how to deadlift or squat or some of the more complex overhead movements, the technique is huge. It's crucial. If you have bad posture, bad mechanics, or weakness in a certain area, lack of mobility, you're going to get stronger by lifting better, not just trying to lift more weight. The challenging part is, as a beginner, the way actually in strength training, the way you define a beginner is that they can lift more every single session. That's what a beginner is. That's how fast they adapt. Is you take a 132 pound, 6 foot, 13-year-old, right? And put them underneath the bench press, and they're going to have a hard time with a 45-pound bar. The next time, 2 days later when they come in the gym, they can do 50 pounds. That's a 10% increase in 2 days. That's because they're a beginner. And this is Mark Ripto's thing of starting strength. They can adapt and create the response and get stronger every single time. So in the beginning, it's like, oh my gosh, it's just about lifting more. It's about lifting more. It's about lifting more. And they're right. As an intermediate, they can see those changes week to week. As you become more advanced and elite, those things happen more monthly or quarterly. When you become pro, you're essentially trying to put on a PR once a year. So that's kind of like the trick is that in the beginning, you're going to see the gains just by lifting more. But eventually you come into a plateau where you almost have to go back, lift less, follow what the Chinese have implemented, which is this like do not exceed technical failure, meaning lift less to work better, and then you'll see the gains.
I was just going to say that, and get to the point where there came a point in my own career where I had to take a step back and find movement efficiencies. And I had to lift less more often, literally less load per session to hone in the right technique and the right efficiencies. Because now, if you're moving in the most efficient bar path, you are going to be able to lift more weight for the effort that you're putting out because you're just more efficient. You're moving shorter ranges of motion, shorter distances, activating muscle fibers more efficiently, all of that. And that only happens by reducing the total load that you're lifting, honing in the right technique in the bar path, which again, it's me on the bench press with 95 pounds, setting in the movement pattern that I want to make sure that I am hitting for that session. Don't just go in there accidentally and just throw on 135 and start benching around. It's like, hey, set the movement pattern, get it activated, then go hit your session.
You know, a really good Cole example for this would be his overhead squat. So when Cole first started in CrossFit, if he tried to continually to lift more and more with those overhead squat, he would probably be pretty close to where he was back then today in his overhead squat. But he didn't. He worked with very, very light loads to work the really, really strong positioning. And now, which actually, I mean, it went from one of probably like relative to the cohorts, one of the worst overhead squatters introduced to the sport to, I would say that was like a top 5 movement for Cole. Like when those came up, we were pumped. Like that was a really, really good movement for Cole. And again, you know, think about like a 135 bar because he was strong being really challenging for him when he first came in. If he kept on trying to play with 135, that's sort of above the threshold of making the mechanical changes. And we need to make the mechanical changes, which is why him working with like 45 pounds, like really light, because that's practice, not even training. Then you work it, do some other reps at the 65% range. That's where you can make huge changes. Not as obvious when you're talking about things like bench and press and squat, because people don't see those as technically demanding, but they are there. Those are not sit and do a leg extension, right? If we were sitting doing a leg extension, this conversation would not be as pertinent. But anytime you're doing a compound closed chain movement, meaning multiple joints, feet on the ground, this is hugely important.
It's the same way when you see a back squat and you see a subtle hip shift when somebody starts to get above 90%. It's a, hey, no, go back down to 85. I don't want to see the hip shift at all. And you drive that home.
We used to have, one of the ways I would bring this home with my athletes is talk about how trees, we're trying to get to the top of the tree. And the way you get there is by staying on the trunk, right? If you go out on a branch, branches don't go up, they go out. So what Cole's saying is, I can increase my weights, call it instead of percentage, real weight, right? And we'll talk about like squat, back squat. I can back squat 135 and it looks good. I can back squat 185 and it looks good. I can back squat 225 and maybe there starts to be like the foot starts to shift in, the hip starts to drop. At 245, it doesn't look like it did. What that means is we've exceeded technical failure. What that means is we're no longer on the trunk of the tree. We've gotten pushed out onto a branch. Branches, if you watch a tree, kind of grow up a little bit and then they go out. So what we need to do is go back down the branch and go back down. So we probably need to not play with the 245, probably not with the 225. We probably need to put 205 on the bar and do it way more intentionally. And then just hammer the reps there because you can't do the reps, right? You need the practice. You need the repetitions. At the 245, you might only be doing 1, 2s, or 3s. But the 205, you can do 5, 6, 7 really intentional reps. And then we all know, John Wooden, if you want to get better, it's get the feedback and then repetition. You got to do it over and over and over again.
We're brought to you by Gusto Online Payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. Your team's ability to focus on what matters starts with knowing the basics are handled. When payroll is on time, benefits are clear, and HR questions get answered quickly, your people can stop worrying about the small stuff and focus on doing the great work you hired them for. That's the chain. Good HR leads to happy employees stay focused, and focused employees build something that works. Gusto handles all of it. Automatic payroll, tax filing, unlimited payroll runs for one flat monthly price, and direct access to certified HR experts when you need them. Plus, it integrates with the accounting software you're already using, so everything syncs automatically. We use it here on the show, and it's trusted by over 400,000 small businesses. That many small businesses cannot be wrong. Try Gusto at gusto.com/excellence and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/excellence. We're brought to you by David, a protein bar that actually tastes good and helps you hit your nutrition goals without a ton of extra unnecessary calories. One of the things I'm always trying to do is get 4 proper meals in every single day. I've talked about that before on the show. On busy days, the best and most effective way for me to do that and to keep the consistency I want is to grab a David bar. Either of their bars works great for this and for me and for you. Their gold bar has 28 grams of protein at just 150 calories, and the bronze bar has 20 grams of protein, also at just 150 calories. Both are made with high quality protein, so I can add some fruit to it, and I've got a well-balanced meal quickly and on the go. So no matter what your day looks like, David makes it easy to stay consistent with your nutrition. Right now, when you buy 4 cartons of David bars, you'll get your 5th carton for free if you go to davidprotein.com/excellence. That's davidprotein.com/excellence. You can also find them in stores nationwide. We're brought to you by Timeline Nutrition, bakers of MitoPure Longevity Gummies, the first clinically proven urolithin A supplement that supports your cellular energy and your recovery. You can't outtrain sluggish energy. It just starts deeper than that. Better recovery starts at the cellular level, and MitoPure targets mitochondrial decline, a key hallmark of aging, so you can stay strong, capable, and vibrant. Your mitochondria are the powerhouses of your cell, and as they decline with age, everything from muscle strength to endurance suffers. Clinical studies have shown MitoPure improves muscle strength by 12% and muscle endurance by 17% after 16 weeks. This is why I take the gummies every single night before bed as part of my wind down routine. They're clinically shown to support muscle strength and function. They're NSF certified, and they're the #1 doctor recommended urolithin A supplement. Don't let another year go by feeling less than your best. You can grab 30% off your first month of MitoPure gummies at timeline.com/excellence30. That's timeline.com/excellence30, the number 30, as while the offer lasts.
Cool. So connecting that to the next one that's on the list. So we've got warm up properly, lift less in order to lift better, which really kind of became a conversation around the differences between practice, training, and competition, leading into question number 3, or thing number 3 that we think is hard but critical, is training your weaknesses. So interested to hear how that connects to kind of those 3 categories, because when it comes to weaknesses, I'm curious how you guys interpret those. Is it a weakness regarding your well-rounded actual fitness and capability? Or is it more of like a nuanced weakness that requires like a significant practice approach? So yeah, number 3, training your weaknesses.
I think of weaknesses, the one thing that I ask myself often is, where am I limited? What is limiting me? And so if, to go back to what we were talking about with the back squat, if my form is starting to break down at certain percentages and I'm not able to get to the total load that I want to be able to lift, I have a goal of back squatting 450 pounds again. But when I get to 425, I start to have my knee drop in and my hip shift a little bit. There's a limiter for me. That is one thing that is going to limit me. So now I'm going to go into the gym and I'm going to solve the limitation that is keeping me from my goal. Then, in terms of overall fitness, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to assess what is the thing that is limiting me from being able to reach the goals that I have. And I'm going to fill that gap, because there's a gap there that I need to identify and fill. And I need to bring the intention in the gym in order to fill that gap.
Yeah, that's really interesting the way you started that call, which is not the way that I was interpreting this, but it's really good to highlight. There's 2 points here, which is there's train your weaknesses in terms of kind of the way we think, like in the CrossFit space or in the ARS comp train space, in terms of this really, well-rounded 10 components of fitness, our big 3 of strength, conditioning, and mobility. Like, what's your weakness there? That's kind of where my mind jumped to. But to Cole's point, what Cole's actually saying is, which it's a start, this was even inside a specific movement, modality, where are you weak? And this is what the conjugate, like what Louis Simmons was able to build some of the strongest people in the world was purely based off of this. So when they're trying to build the strongest people, their whole thing is find, identify, and kill your weaknesses. People go like, okay, but wouldn't their weaknesses be like endurance running? He's like, yeah, but they're not. What he's talking about specifically in terms of if you're a weak deadlifter, inside of your deadlift, what is the weakest spot? Is it your low back? Is it your glutes? Is it your hamstrings? Is it your grip strength? And then you identify what that is. If it's your low back, like get really good at weighted back extensions. Just hammer that, right? If it is your glutes, like you're going to spend a lot of time with RDLs. If it is your hamstrings, get ready to do some Nordic curls, right? Maybe it's the off the ground. Okay, so it's deficit lifts. Maybe it's the lockout. Maybe it's rack pulls, right? You're identifying the weakness inside of it, and that's how you get better. Is you get better by eliminating weaknesses. I think where we go then is like, what does better look like to us? And ours is not just to be able to deadlift 1,000 pounds like theirs is. Our better is well-rounded. So then you think of it in terms of really simply, like if I was to rank myself 1 to 10 in strength, where would I put myself? Is it 8, 9? Is it a 7? If I was thinking about myself in terms of conditioning, where would I rank myself? Is it 6, a 7, 5, 4? And thinking about mobility, where would I rank myself? And then the idea is, this is really simple and everyone will get, it's the law of diminishing returns. If you're a 8 or a 9 and you want to move up 10%, that requires years of work, literally years of work to be able to do that. We just talked about in the other one. That's what moving from advanced to elite to pro is massive. But if you're a 4 or a 5, moving up 10%, it's a law of averages. It doesn't take, said another way, if our goal is to look better, feel better, play better, kick ass into our 90s, holistic, well-rounded health, the goal is not to play the ego game of, hey, Ben is really good at pull-ups. I just want to show up every day we're doing pull-ups and do more pull-ups. Me moving from being able to do 25 strict pull-ups to 30 doesn't do anything for the longevity game. Doesn't even make me look better or feel better. It's a full ego play. Same thing with take someone else, like Cole with overhead squat, Cole with echo bike. Okay. Cole's max power on an echo bike, 10-second echo bike. Cole moving that up a little bit doesn't change his physiological game. It doesn't. Cole working on some things that he's neglected for a long time, coming out of football and becoming a CrossFit athlete, his endurance makes a big, big difference, right? Because he has a lot more room there. So this idea of working on your weaknesses, it's almost just like a math problem. You figure out where the biggest area is. You have a bunch of cups. Which one can you pour more into? That's it. And you were trying to find that. So the hard part about it, if that's the whole thing, right? The hard, but critical is it doesn't feel good because you suck at it. At least suck at it relative to the other things. So for me, relatively suck is things like deadlift and super high power things for me. But those are the days that I know I can't miss. Those are the days I know I got to get in. And what actually ends up happening is you see more gains on those. You're like, you just got to start on those. You just got to fight the ego that says this isn't built for you. And here's the cool part is, so when it's a deadlift day, it's just hitting home so well because we had deadlifts yesterday. We're in the midst of our stamina strength cycle. We're in week 2. So we did our 3 into 6. Anyone that's following along comp train is nodding along and going, this is freaking awesome, because it is. Yesterday, that's a day that like I put a little bit extra into the lifts, and then the workout afterwards had sets of 20 deads in it. I don't compete in those days, but I really train. I'm really focused and I'm trying to like get stronger. And I might not put as much effort into the other movements in the couplets or triplets because I really want those deads. As opposed to something like today, which had tons of strict pull-ups and biking, 2 of my strengths. I'm like, all right, this isn't going to get me much fitter, but like I can throw down here. and I can kind of compete on that day. It takes the pressure off on those other days. Because I go in, I go, I'm not even gonna post my scores. I'm just training. Maybe I'll even like lighten up on one of the other two movements or move into a different movement. So I don't have the pressure of that. But man, I'm gonna get better at my deads today.
So speaking of weaknesses, then, why is it so hard and why is it so beneficial to do mobility work? Number 4, hard but critical thing to do, mobility work.
Can't Instagram it. Although actually there are people that are Instagram. If you get really good at it, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
No,
until
you
until you
watch
become like one
out.
of these
Watch
like
out.
animal guys or circus trick people or but when you're
Mhm.
not good at it, there's no ego. No one's like, you don't get to walk down the beach and be like, check out my mobility, right? Which you do, like check out my abs, check out my shoulders, check out whatever. So there's no ego play and there's no leaderboard to it. And
Mhm.
until you start seeing changes, which is really frustrating for a lot of people because they don't see in the beginning, there's no habit loop, right? There's no cue, action, reward. There's no reward. When you go for a long run, you get a runner's high. You feel good afterwards. When you go lift, you get a pump. You sort of get to see what your body could look like if you stick with this thing, right? You're more vascular, more defined. You got a pump. That doesn't happen in mobility unless you're actually able to really open things up. But if you can't, if you're doing the wrong things with mobility, you put in the work and you don't see a change, super frustrating.
Mhm.
So that's why it goes off the wayside because people are like, well, screw that. I don't feel a pump. I don't get endorphins. This isn't fun. Like, so it's super fast to drop off. It's like
And I
flossing.
think that
You're already brushing
yeah.
your teeth. Now we got to floss too.
Yes, you need to floss too. I think that one of the challenging parts too is there's a lot of people that believe that you can just use the little toothpick floss
Hmm.
things and that's going to be the best solve for your flossing.
Right.
Just going off the flossing. What I'm really saying is people think that they're doing mobility work when they're not actually doing the mobility work that moves the needle.
Hmm.
And so they
Great
spend
call.
time on it for a period of time and they definitely don't get the results that they were expecting to. And then it's like, that's not working. That's not dropping off. It takes far more work. And I have seen this throughout my career so many times. If you don't have to work for it, it's not going to give you the results that you're hoping for. You have to work for it and you have to work for mobility. You have to be very intentional. There are certain protocols and you can't just trust Instagram to tell you, hey, this is how you stretch or foam roll or XYZ. There's plenty of research now showing the most effective mobility protocols to go through. And we even have a user in our app, Kate. Like, she was like, you know what? I'm going to trust you guys that this mobility work is going to pay dividends. We didn't hear anything. We put mobility into the app. We didn't hear anything for weeks and weeks and maybe even months. And then all of a sudden she chimes in. She was like, oh my gosh, you guys, this stuff works. And to even call it out, another modality and area of training that is very similar is low amplitude plyometrics. And the same thing. You do these light skips, light hops, light bounding, all these things frequently enough, then all of a sudden you notice your foot reaction time is faster when you trip. You catch yourself, you can jump a little faster, you can react sooner. And it's all these things that there's just like this underlying neurological lane of pathways that's happening that you don't get to see, but it comes out at the right time when you want to respond in particular ways. It just takes time. And we are impatient as human beings.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Let's make it useful. So what's a real world example?
As an almost 50-year-old and a guy that has had a back fusion, like I was always like coming out of my back fusion, which happened 13 years ago for me. I kind of default tight, right? I'm kind of default like a tight person. My family, all the guys in my family, we've all had back surgeries. I have 3 brothers and my dad. We've all had a back surgery.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
It's like where we're wired, right? So 15 years removed from a back surgery and coming up on 50, I couldn't, if I was to go play soccer with Bodie, my 13-year-old, or I was at a soccer game and we were just like, and a ball went skipping out of bounds and dad goes to run, right? For whatever reason, dad runs across the field. You forgot your water bottle. Like this is just like such a small, I want to call this out because the combination of what we have in the app now, with the low amplitude and the true plyometrics, both those two, that
Mhm.
like springiness. I haven't felt springy since probably 5 years before maybe before that, because before that I was like an endurance
Let's
athlete
go.
doing Ironman, and talk about not being this is actually the reason I started getting into CrossFit, was because I was training athletes, field sport, court, rink athletes, team athletes, and I'd have them jump on boxes. And I'm about to go do an Ironman. I'm supposed to be like the pinnacle of fitness. And they're like, coach, jump in. And I'm like, I can't jump on that 20-inch box. I can't do that. It's like, holy crap. So
Mm.
unspringy, so tight. But doing this stuff, I'm now doing the Friday plyos and jumping on the high boxes and doing rebounding broad jumps and the low amplitude stuff. And guess what now? I go to the soccer field, and without warming up, to your point, Cole, without warming up,
Mhm.
I can now sprint across the field. It's like that is so, and it's a combination of low amplitude and the true plyos, but also the mobility. As Cole said, it's not just go stretch. It is stretch. It's not that's not that. But it's three things. It's your flexibility work, which can be done through stretching or
Mhm.
other means,
Mhm.
self-myofascial and other stuff. It is motor control. It's like, okay, can you control it through motion and balance and coordination, which is in the app, which is super cool. And the best one is and stability, right? And this is what Kate's saying is oh my God, when I started doing these things together, like game changing, like it really did
Mhm.
move the needle.
Mhm. Mhm.
Super cool.
It creates freedom. It creates freedom to move.
Yeah.
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 And
And this is
that's
when you do
it's
feel it like I have, like and Kate has, then you get the reward and then the habit loop is built, right? Because you're like, oh my God, I never want to go back to that. I never want to go back to that feeling. It's a feeling of like being weak and being strong. It's the feeling of like not being able to run a mile to being like be able to run 5 miles. This is
Mhm.
that same difference of like freedom to move feels effing good.
We're sponsored this time around by Monarch, a personal finance app that helps you see all your accounts, track spending, and build towards your financial goals in one simple place. One of the things that is a factor in maintaining weight loss for folks who have been able to do it is that they regularly check in on the number on the scale. In the same way, Monarch lets you continuously, easily, and consistently check in on your spending and your savings so that it always remains front of mind. We're always aware of where we are, reminding ourselves where we're trying to get to, also that we can take the actions we need to live in accordance with our financial goals. One thing I love is that they will regularly send you emails with updates on your various budget categories so you're never blind to where you might be overspending. Whether you're trying to build savings, pay down debt, or just get a clearer picture of where your money goes, Monarch makes it simple. This new year, achieve your financial goals for good. Monarch is the all-in-one tool that makes proactive money management simple all year long. Head to monarch.com, use the code excellence to get 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com. Use the code excellence to get 50% off your first year. We are brought to you by Mizzen and Main, performance dress shirts and clothing that look professional but feel like workout gear. I've spent the last 20 years basically working out of my house, so anytime I have to go somewhere and get fancy, it gets very uncomfortable very quickly. Traditional dress clothes are just too restrictive. They wrinkle if you look at them wrong, and by the end of the day, you're just ready to change into something you can actually move in. Good thing I've got a closet full of Mizzen and Main. Their dress shirts, polos, and pants are made with performance fabrics, moisture-wicking, wrinkle-free, four-way stretch, and temperature regulating. They look like dress clothes, but feel like the most comfortable thing in your closet. Plus, they're all machine washable, so you can eliminate dry cleaning entirely, thank the goodness. Whether you need a dress shirt for meetings or a polo for everyday wear, they've built clothing that works for the way you actually live. Go to mizzenandmain.com. Use the code excellence20 for 20% off your whole order. That's Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and MAIN.com. Use the code excellence20 for 20% off.
Okay. Number 5, training at 60% effort. We tagged the idea that this is where like a significant component of your cardio, for lack of better terms, is built, where your engine is developed. Why is it hard for people to train at 60% effort? Why is it beneficial for people to train at 60% effort?
This is an interesting. It depends on the community you're in,
Hmm.
because I have noticed, now that I've dabbled in the endurance space a little bit more, I have noticed it is very hard for people to train outside of the 60 to 70%.
Totally. This is totally
Yeah.
relative. Yeah, 100%
Yeah.
Cole. This is the default. This is what everyone does.
Yes, it's that, and that's a huge community that it's like all they're doing is zone 2, and I'm over here like, "You need to do some echo bike sprints with you just need to light your hair on fire, and you need to do some anaerobic capacity work," because they serve
Mm.
each other. They all work together,
Yeah.
and you should also be working on VO2 max, you should also be working on your lactate threshold. You should be doing them all together in the right cadence and volume per week.
So I think specifically, we're speaking kind of to our legacy user with this content. And so I think we've taken this significant shift in terms of intentional intensity. So when we're talking about 60% effort, we're going, well, that's an RPE 6 out of 10, things along those lines. So maybe the question better phrased kind of to the masses is if the concept and the approach here is to train at well-rounded levels of intentional intensity, why is it so hard to not just have one gear? Because I think to what you said, to your point, the reason it's hard for people kind of in our legacy community is because the one gear is all out. But in the endurance community, the one gear is only kind of zone 2 and aerobic. So why is it so hard to be intentional about training in gears you're not comfortable in? Why is that hard? Why is it so beneficial to do? And from your all's experience, how can people start doing it?
Love that. It's a great reframe. And Cole, thank you for calling it out because that helps to
Mhm.
reframe it.
Yeah.
What we're saying is just going out and doing the fly and die every single time is not the best way to train. But where we all came from, that was the default. That was just like if you're in the endurance community, it's like go stack up a bunch of miles. That was the default, right? If you were an endurance athlete, you said, I went for a run on Saturday. The question that everyone asks is, how far did you
How
go?
far?
Right. It's
How
just
far?
miles. Like it's about miles. If you're in our community and you do one of our workouts, the answer is like, what was your time? How fast did you
Mhm.
go? Right. So it
Mhm.
incentivizes go out everything you got. How fast can you do this thing? What we are kind of pulling back the curtain on a little bit is what we're looking for is not just how good are you at this. We'll use like a jargony thing for a second, like anaerobic capacity, your ability to work at the very top end level of your conditioning and try to hold on as long as possible, right? Get crazy out of breath to the point where you're dizzy and you're kind of like taking little stumble steps between the movements. Like that's like yet in our space, that's kind of the norm. It's really
Mhm.
wild how like we've
Mhm. Mhm.
normalized that. And when it's like, as
Mhm.
Cole said, no one's doing that outside of our space. What we're saying is maybe it's not either of those, right? Pieces of both. What we really want is to be intentional, building up the totality of our physical capacity. One community is doing a phenomenal job of building up their cardiovascular endurance by doing zone 2. The reason zone 2 works is, Jameson, you alluded to this perfectly in the beginning, is not that there's some secret sauce to zone 2. It's that you can just do more training. So what happens is as you go to do your training session, you go out for a run, let's say, as you go to start, your heart rate starts to climb up as your pace goes faster. As you start to run a 15-minute mile, and then you bring that to a 12-minute mile, 10-minute mile, 8-minute mile, 6-minute mile, your heart rate correspondingly goes up and up and up. What's interesting is your heart rate continues to go up and up and up as those paces increase. There is a correlation, there is a direct correlation to stroke volume. The amount that your heart can actually contract to push blood through your whole body to get the good stuff to all the working areas. Keep it going. What ends up happening though, right around zone 2, 60% ish of your max heart rate, is the stroke volume tops out. So while these things go in parallel up together, up and to the right, as heart rate continues to go and pace continues to go, this just flattens out. So the idea is just do more. If you can do more there, your heart gets stronger. So that's the whole idea behind zone 2. People talk about mitochondria and all this other stuff. Mitochondria gets built from all this stuff. So it's
I
about
was
like
going to
this
say the same thing. Yep.
stroke. And by the way, what's better, high intensity interval training or long, slow distance zone 2 for overall VO2 max, the thing right in the middle? The answer is what we need so much more of in the fitness space. Yes. And
Wash.
both, do. There's
Exactly.
not one or the other. It's both create this thing. So what we want is to take advantage of where all of these different thresholds happen. And we're labeling them at these certain points. And we could subdivide this even further. But zone 2 is where stroke volume kind of gets maximized. And you can do a lot. That's like, let's build up it's another way, build up your heart muscle. That's what that does. So cool. If you go above that, the heart doesn't get any stronger. You just can't work out as long. So why would you go any longer? If the goal is to build up your heart, just stay there and go for longer. Now you can train there for hours. That's the benefit of that one. As you go up to the next one, which I'm just gonna call it lactic threshold. There's other LT1, LT2, but lactic threshold is basically where this is not the exact mechanism, but you're producing lactate and your body's trying to do stuff with it. Clear it is a great word. Yeah, I don't want to say like get rid of it, right? Because it can actually be used as a fuel.
Exactly.
But it's that idea of like, hey, if you go above this, you can no longer clear this anymore. So why would you want to go above that if that's the goal? If lactic tolerance, if you're trying to move that up, don't go above it, stay right at it. It's in order to create a physiological response, you need to force the stimulus to force the adaptation. So if you're trying to improve your heart muscle and you're going way hard in that, you don't get to work out as long. Your heart doesn't get as strong. If you're trying to build your ability to buffer and use lactic and you go above it, you don't get to work out as long. That's the whole thing. You don't get to. So just stay at that pace and train for 30, 40, 60 minutes in the lactic threshold. Then you go up to the next one, which is VO2 max, which is the maximum ability to use oxygen to run the whole system. If you go above it, you become anaerobic, meaning you can't use oxygen to run the whole system and you can't work out as long. Now keeps you, so what we want to do is spend as much time in VO2 as we can. So the idea is, what is it that we're trying to move up? Is it your heart and your cardiovascular endurance? Move it up. It takes hours, long time. If we're trying to move the LT up, 20, 40, 60 minutes. If you're trying to move VO2 max up, 9, 12, 15, you can break these into intervals, right? But working time. If you're trying to anaerobic, short, hard, super hard sprints. Now, here's the thing. If you go out in a workout or training session, anaerobic, and the workout is a 20-minute workout, you're kind of not improving anything. Honestly, I say that in kind of coyly and kind of like you are, right? But nowhere near where you actually could. Because what you need is not only, you need to be able to have the time. Like if you go do a zone 2 run, you do it for 6 minutes, there's not a whole lot of benefit, right? Because it doesn't make sense. You need the time there. If you do an LT and you only do it for 6 minutes, there's not a lot of benefit there. If you do a VO2 or anaerobics in that 6 minutes, there's a lot of benefit, right? It's like, so you got to match this all up. So, what we do in our training is we just kind of take care of this for everybody. We just make sure that we have the right amount of each of these interspersed throughout a week. So the hard thing is not, as you maybe started with, is like how to train at 60%. The hard thing is, how do you train at intentional intensities?
Yeah.
The first one is to know what those intensities are. And next one is doing it. And that takes a level of composure, maturity, and understanding of pacing. The simplest way to do this is if you're doing a workout that has multiple rounds, like an AMRAP, right, where you might get 10 rounds in an AMRAP. How long does each round take? If the first round took 65 seconds, but the middle and last rounds took 3 minutes, you didn't do the workout right. You came out anaerobic and then went right through lactic threshold and end up at a slower pace than where you should have been. So we got to kind of find that pacing. So you're staying right at that threshold. We always use lactic threshold as a thing. Every one of these is a threshold. So we just try to spend as much time as we can. Spend as much time as we can at each one of these kind of like thresholds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's great. And I would tie that maybe to these last two, which is, I think that one becomes as psychological as it is physiological, in that people have a really hard time trusting it. And it's really easy to trust hard work. And so I think, again, I mean, Cole called that out so well in terms of like, well, it depends on who you're talking about. I think to our specific kind of communities that we are adjacent to and aligned with, it's like, well, it's easier to believe that you're going to get results if you are in an immense amount of pain and discomfort versus
Mhm.
like that wasn't that hard. And
Mhm.
it was just hard in different ways for different reasons. It's just not the like 10 out of 10 effort on the floor, writhing in pain hard. And dude, I would say that that's like the primary shift, like in terms of our training approach, that's made the biggest difference for me personally. Is I don't feel that way often at all. Like I don't have the like I'm on the floor writhing in pain. Somebody please help me, or actually don't touch me. Don't even look at me. I need a moment kind of recovery. Man, that's like maybe once every 2 weeks we got something like that.
Because that's how often that should happen. You should have that feeling, "I sent it so hard, I am lying on the floor dying. I think that I am dying." The right amount, in the right doses.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can't do the anaerobic capacity every single day. That should be once every 2 weeks, once a month maybe, depending on the
Yeah, it's right, Cole. And even the ones where you do feel like you're in that gonna go at it once every 1 to 2 weeks, that doesn't mean go back to the fly and die.
Mm,
That still means pace appropriately. What it means is
yeah.
Mhm.
finish with everything you have. That's what
Yeah.
it means.
Mhm.
Like the endurance community just it's why Cole called this in the beginning. They know this just so intuitively. Even like Roger Bannister, the first guy that broke the mile. The training sessions he did to break the mile was he did this is kind of bonkers, but he did this multiple times a week leading up to it, which was 10 by 440. So one time around the track is a 400. So what he did was like overshoot a little bit on 59 seconds. So what he once said was like, I need to be able to like hold that. I want to feel what that 59-second lap feels like, but even a little bit more. And he would do the 10 by 10 at 59 seconds. What he did not do was 10 by 440 as fast as possible each time. Because if he had done that, his first ones would have been like 51 seconds. His middle ones would have been like 56, 57. His last ones would be like 103, 104, 105. To us, that doesn't sound like that big of a difference. That's over a 10% deviation from lap to lap, which is going to not help him spend time at his threshold. So it's not go out everything you got. It's like really, if there's one thing I wish I knew both as an athlete and as a coach when I started this thing, it would be pacing.
Mhm.
It is the secret sauce.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You not
So
only
good.
think of all the benefits that come out of it. You not only get fitter, which is the end game for all of us. You get fitter because you spend the time at the training zone. So here's the big punchline. You get fitter. As Cole called out, guess what? You also don't spend as much time in the pain cave. So it's not as painful. It's not that it's not painful. When Roger Bannister is doing those 10 by 440s, those last ones are everything he has. But the first four aren't,
Mhm.
right? So he's not going out the first one, everything he's got. So and not in the pain cave. So he's halfway through the workout. So better results, less pain, which means faster recovery. And here's the punchline. You actually get better scores. So if you want a leaderboard,
Mhm.
you will actually
Yeah.
score better if you do
Totally.
this.
Mm,
Totally.
yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so let's connect that to the last two, and I'll throw one at each of you. So Ben, connect this next one to exactly what you were just saying there, because I think we're transitioning to both the continued evolution of becoming more psychological than physiological, but oftentimes understanding the physiological benefits helps kind of like combat the psychological difficulty to doing some of these things. So number 6, something that's very hard, but immensely critical in your training journey is resting. Just rest days, full rest days. So why is that important? Why do you think it's hard for people? How can you help them understand its importance?
So from a physiological standpoint, there is an adaptation cycle that takes place. Adaptation means you're getting better, getting stronger, getting fitter. We all want to adapt. The reason we do this is probably multifaceted. Like we feel better as human beings. We feel accomplished,
Mhm.
clears our minds, but we also want to get fitter. At least I think we do.
Mhm.
You actually want to see
Mhm.
gains. You want to get stronger. You want to get faster. The way that happens is by inducing a stimulus, right? You lift the weights, you run around the track, you do the actual thing. Then there is the recovery period after that. So there's stimulus and recovery. If The bigger the stimulus, the more potential recovery can come of it. So if you go for a 1-mile walk, you don't need a lot of recovery from that. If you run a marathon, you need a lot more recovery from that. So the more training you're doing relative to your norm, the more recovery you need. It is during that recovery period that the adaptation takes place. When you're training, you're actually getting weaker. Sounds weird, but we all know this. If I had Cole Jamison, you just did 10 rep back squat at 315 last week for your birthday. Okay. After finishing that, you rack the bar and I go, Jamison, do it again right then. Like, get underneath the bar again. How many are you going to be able to get?
None.
Okay. I was gonna say none. So you're so much weaker. Like, you just got so much weaker from doing that.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but it's worth calling that out. Like, if you start at homeostasis, training puts you down below homeostasis. You're getting worse. When you stop, you rest, you recover. Jameson, if you got none, if I said pick it up, if I let you rest for 10 minutes, how many would you get? 1, 2, 3?
Yeah,
maybe?
I think maybe 3 or 4. Yeah.
Okay, cool. If I let you rest 2 hours, how many would you get? Right? 4, 5, 6, right? If I let you rest 4 or 5 days, how many would you get? You might get
Ideally, all
10
of them.
again. If I let you rest a week or 10 days, how many would you get? You might get 11.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the recovery after the stimulus that is actually making you stronger. So what happens is there's a stimulus which causes you to get worse. You rest, you come back up to homeostasis. And then what happens after that is if the rest period is right, you create what's called super compensation. You're actually getting stronger. This is the whole deal. Like, this is why rest matters. Now, what we do in our training space is we're not just back squatting every day. Just like endurance athletes, they run every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have to take a little bit more breaks potentially, depending on what they're doing, because they need to rest their running legs because they just running legged yesterday. And the thing they want to do is running leg the next day. What we do is we try to, as elegantly as possible, create the training stimulus to allow the adaptation to happen while we're still training. That's kind of cool. Now, bodybuilders knew this, right? They're going to do chest one day, back the next day, legs the next day. So they're able to train 3 days in a row with good intentionality. While one's recovering, they're doing the other. We don't go so far as to segment that, but we are doing this in a way that we can continue to train while still allowing that adaptation curve to take place. Even though we do this as systematically as we can, it still benefits to take a day or two completely off to allow that full thing to happen, because it's not just muscular, it also happens through the nervous system as well. So there's not
the
like necessarily
the endocrine system.
Yeah. And there's not necessarily like, there is not a one size fits all for all. Right. And this is really like, if you can figure this out, this is how you create the superhuman. The person that does this the best wins. Who can create the most stimulus and create the exact right time to where they're peaking the super compensation. Because right then when that's about to peak, if you don't do anything, right? We just did the back squat example. It goes back down.
Goes back down.
Jamison did 10. If we allow him to rest 11, 12 days, he might get 11, right? But what happens if we rest 3 months? Then you might only get 8 or 7, right?
Totally.
So you have to time it exactly right. And this is where is what every coach in every program in every sport is trying to do the best.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I think that what it does is if you have a hard time resting, understanding that the rest is benefiting you and is giving you additional returns on your work can be a great starting place for that. And then I think you also just learn that like you don't have to earn rest, that rest is a part of the process as well.
Rest is training. Rest is part of your training. And so it's always what I told myself. This is part of your training.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Okay. Last one. This one's for Cole. So wrap it up for us, Cole. This one is about training, but it's not about training even more than the others. Number 7, why is it hard but critical to show up when no one's watching?
So that you can show up when you're needed.
Say more.
Yeah, say more. You know, it's like, it's so you can show up when you're needed. I think that I mean, I absolutely love the saying, the scripture that no discipline is pleasant at the time, but those who are trained by it know a life of righteousness and peace, that you have a peaceful life. No discipline is pleasant at the time, but those who are trained by it
Hmm.
know a life of right standing and peace.
Now
Hmm.
say it in a
Peace.
whisper. Now say it in a whisper.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
peace. But the point is you show up out of discipline. You allow yourself to be trained by the disciplines of showing up and doing the work with intentionality, with deliberateness. And on the other side of it are fruits that you are going to be able to reap.
Hmm.
And that alone then allows you to, when you are called upon, you can be of service, you can be of help, you're capable to give. And Ben, you know how much that means to me. And then the other side of it is learning to love the process more than the accolades that you get from, or the acknowledgement that you get from other people. Are you going in, are you showing up so that your ego can be stroked, or are you training yourself to truly love the process of what you're doing, which is just a dopaminergic response. It's can you get yourself to the point where you are now loving showing up, and that is the thing that drives you forward, not the praise of other people or showing off in front of somebody else. And can you kill your ego and show up because you know that that is what you enjoy, what you love, and is ultimately going to give you the peace and the right standing that you want on the other side.
Hmm. So good. I think that's a great place to end. I think for a lot of folks that listen to Chasing Excellence, a lot of people certainly that follow Comp Train are showing up when no one's watching in lots of areas of their life. Training being one of those, and we have a ton of people that train alone in their garage. But I also think we have a lot of people who are showing up, in other areas of responsibility and leadership, and that aren't training, but also don't come with recognition, and they aren't about when people are watching. So I think that's an awesome place to end that. And I think the rest of these 6 things just kind of like naturally happen when you become the kind of person who shows up when no one's watching anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like a bit of an identity first or character forward way to
100%.
train. So cool, guys.
100%.
All right. Well, first one of hopefully many training conversations, specific training and comp train conversations on Chasing Excellence. And we'll be back next month with another one.
Just
Appreciate
love
it.
this community.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for tuning into the show this week. 2 quick things before you go. First, if you want even more from this episode, go check out the full 5-3-1 breakdown. We give you the 5 big ideas from the episode, 3 reflection questions to help you process it all, and 1 key takeaway that you can put into action right now. The link is in the show notes. The second thing, while you're there, check out the Chase Club. It's our premium membership where we include bonus content, ad-free episodes, and a brand new Chase Tracker app. Check it all out at chasingexcellence.email.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.